What if I told you that your life isn't falling apart because of fate or bad luck or even other people? What if it's simply collapsing under the weight of your own attention? Sounds strange, right? But look closely, not at the world, not at others. Look at where your attention goes the moment you wake up. You expect a fight before saying hello. You expect rejection before asking. You expect failure even before trying. And you know what's worse? It happens. It all happens almost like you've cast a spell on your own life. But it's not magic. It's not a curse. It's physics. Because just like in the infamous double-slit experiment, your reality changes the moment you observe it. It's not metaphorically, literally. The way you look shapes what you see. And what you see becomes your truth. It's not about what's happening to you. It's about the lens you're using to look at it. And if your lens is cracked by doubt, dirty with fear, distorted by trauma, then that's what your world becomes. A mess, a pattern, trap you didn't even know you were repeating. But here's the twist. You're not stuck. Because the same way you observe collapse, you can also observe creation. So before we go deeper into this, do one thing. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so YouTube knows this is the kind of content that matters to you. And keep showing it, because today, we're not just talking about quantum physics. We're talking about how you've been collapsing possibilities in your own life without even realizing it. So now, take a breath, because we're about to change the way you see reality, and that changes everything. You've probably heard this before. Change your thoughts, change your life. It's not that simple, is it? Because you've tried, you've read the quotes, repeated the affirmations, tried to think positive, and yet life keeps looping. Same fears, same reactions, same disappointments. Why? Because it's not just about what you think, it's about what you observe, constantly, silently, obsessively. See, observation is not passive. It's not neutral. It's power. And right now, whether you realize it or not, you're using that power against yourself. Every time you expect things to go wrong, and they do. Every time you notice rejection, but miss connection. Every time you rehearse failure, but ignore possibility. This isn't just mindset. It's selective perception, confirmation bias, neural priming, all backed by neuroscience. Your brain filters reality based on what it expects to find. Once you train it to find pain, chaos, betrayal, or failure, it gets really good at it. So good, in fact, that even when something good happens, you'll doubt it, reject it, or sabotage it. Why? Because it doesn't fit the version of life you've been observing all along. Here's the real question. What reality are you creating just by paying attention to it? And more importantly, what would happen if you look somewhere else? Not with fake optimism, not with denial, but with curiosity, with awareness, with intention. That's what we're going to explore in this video. Because this isn't about blaming yourself. It's about freeing yourself from patterns you didn't choose, but kept repeating anyway. So as we go deeper, I want you to think of one area in your life that feels stuck. A place where no matter what you do, it doesn't move. That is where your perception might be lying to you. And maybe, just maybe, all it needs is a different kind of observation. Let's test that idea together. Let's begin where most stories don't, with a thought that hides in plain sight. You wake up, the room is quiet, the air feels heavy. Nothing's happened yet, but you already feel wrong, off, on edge. A whisper in your mind says, something's going to go wrong today, and you don't question it. Instead, you brace yourself. You move slower. You say less. You protect more. And then, the first thing goes wrong. Maybe small, be barely noticeable. A broken glass, a late message, a strange look from someone, and the voice inside you says, "See? I told you." That's not intuition. That's observation collapsing. Into experience, you observed pain, and the world delivered it. Not because you're cursed, not because the universe hates you, but because you were tuned in to that frequency. Your focus became a magnet, a lens, a filter. Everything else, joy, ease, opportunity, was still there. You just didn't see it because your eyes weren't open to it. Now, let's break this down. Imagine two people walk through the same street. One thinks this city is dangerous. The other thinks this city is alive. They pass the same buildings, hear the same sounds. But one sees threats, the other sees vibrancy. Why? Because what you believe, you highlight. What you highlight, you reinforce. What you reinforce becomes your truth. Your internal narrative becomes your external reality. And here's the dangerous part. It happens subconsciously. You don't wake up and say, "Today I'll ruin everything." But your perception does the work for you. It finds chaos. It focuses on it. It memorizes it. Soon you can't tell the difference between what's real and what you expected. That's cognitive collapse, a psychological version of the double-slit experiment, where your expectation determines your experience. But what if you change the observer? Not the world, not your job, not your partner, just the observer, the version of you that's watching. Let's go deeper. Take relationships. You've been hurt. Someone lied, broke your trust. You learn to protect yourself. Say you're fine, but deep down, you're scanning for red flags. Every silence becomes a warning. Every delay becomes betrayal. Every small flaw becomes a sign of future disaster. So you test people, you push, you pull, you hide, and eventually you lose them. Not because they were toxic, but because you never gave them a chance to be anything else. You observed the collapse before the connection. And when they walk away, your mind says, "See? I knew it." But did you know it? Or did you create it? This is how powerful observation is. It's not passive, it's creative. It shapes the outcome. And the worst part, we think it's protection. We think we're being smart, but we're just rehearsing trauma over and over. Let's talk about fear. Fear isn't just an emotion, it's a spotlight. Fear, your brain starts tracking. If you're afraid of failure, your mind zooms in on every sign of it. If you're afraid of being judged, every glance feels like scrutiny. This isn't you being weak. This is your brain trying to protect you. But it doesn't know the difference between survival and sabotage. It just follows your lead. And if you lead with fear, it floods your perception with things to fear, even when they're not there. Even when the situation is safe, even when the person is kind, because your brain wants you to be right more than it wants you to be free. That's the trap. So if you expect pain, you'll find it even in peace. If you expect loss, you'll feel it even when nothing's missing. If you expect rejection, you'll experience it even if no one's pushing you away. It's not because the world is cruel, it's because your observation is incomplete, and that's where the work begins. So how do you change it? First, by noticing the lens, ask yourself, what am I expecting right now? Am I looking for proof that I don't belong? Am I searching for a reason to quit? Am I waiting for someone to disappoint me? If the answer is yes, you've already decided the outcome. But here's the thing. Expectation is a choice. Not an easy one. Not an obvious one, but a choice. Can choose to expect something else, not blindly, but curiously. You can observe the same silence and choose to see calm instead of threat. You can notice a delay and interpret it as patience, not rejection. You can feel fear and translate it as growth, not danger. It takes practice, but that's the key. You don't fight your perception, you retrain it like building muscle. Like tuning an instrument. You observe again and again and again with a new lens, and slowly your reality shifts. Not because the world changed, but because you changed what you were willing to see. Let me tell you a quick story. There was a woman deeply afraid of failure. She turned down every opportunity, declined every invitation, because each one looked like a trap. But one day, someone offered her something small, a collaboration. Just a simple idea. For a second, she didn't say no. She paused, took a breath, and asked herself, what if this isn't danger? If it's new, she didn't force herself to believe it. She just allowed the possibility to exist. That tiny shift in observation opened a new path. It led to growth, to confidence, to connection. All because she looked differently. That's the power you have. Right now. Not tomorrow. Not when you're healed. Now. Where your attention goes, life follows. So ask yourself, what are you observing that keeps collapsing your joy? And more importantly, what haven't you dared to observe that could open something new? Let's talk about something even deeper. Not just what you observe, but who is doing the observing. Because after a while, what you constantly focus on doesn't just shape your experience. It starts shaping your identity. If you constantly notice how people reject you, you start believing you're unworthy. If you only observe your mistakes, you start believing you're a failure. If you always focus on being behind, you start believing you're not enough. And over time, these observations harden into beliefs. Beliefs become self-images. You don't say, I feel lost. You say, I am lost. You don't say, I feel small. You say, I'm just not that kind of person. That's not truth. That's repetition. You didn't find those answers. You practiced them. And now you carry them like facts. But here's what's wild. The brain doesn't care if something is true. It just cares if it's familiar. So if you've observed pain more often than joy, rejection more often than love, failure more often than success, then your brain trusts those patterns, even if they hurt you, because at least they're predictable. And humans love predictability more than happiness. That's why we stay in cycles that hurt. That's why we return to relationships that drain. That's why we sabotage what's working just to feel at home. You're not addicted to pain. You're addicted to certainty. And your identity becomes the prison. But what if that identity was never real? What if it was just a side effect of focus, like a camera left zoomed in on a crack, missing the whole view? What if you've been describing yourself based on one season, one mistake, one pattern, and you're more than that? You are, but you won't see it until you look differently. Let's go back to the science. Your brain isn't fixed. It changes constantly. That's called neuroplasticity, which means the more you observe something, the stronger that pathway becomes. It's like carving grooves into your mind. Observe pain. That groove deepens. You observe kindness. That groove can grow too, but only if you choose to look there. And this is where most people fail. They try to be positive for a day and give up. But you don't unlearn years of survival in 24 hours. You don't rewire a mind overnight. It's not motivation. It's repetition. You train your perception like an instrument. It's like a craft. With patience, with intention, with care. And eventually, what used to feel impossible starts to feel normal. Let's bring it down to earth. Imagine someone offers you a dream opportunity, but your first thought is, they must be mistaken. Your second thought is, I'm not ready. Your third thought is, what if I fail? And then you say no. Not because it wasn't right, but because your observation was filtered through fear. Now multiply that by 10, by 100, by 1,000 tiny decisions. And you'll see how an entire life can be built on avoidance. Not choice, avoidance. And what gets avoided gets forgotten. Until one day you wonder, who could I have become if I had just looked differently? There's a moment in everyone's life when they stop being a witness and start being the author. That moment comes when you question the lens itself. God, the world, not other people, not your job, but your own eyes. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? Start asking, what part of me is choosing to see it this way? And that question is the beginning of power, because it means you're no longer the prisoner of your focus. You're its master. Let's make this even more real. Next time something triggers you, a silence, a delay, a challenge, ask what else could this mean? Not to deny the emotion, but to expand the meaning. Maybe that silence is someone thinking. Maybe that delay is the universe giving you time. Maybe that challenge is an invitation to rise. When you shift the meaning, you shift the emotion. And when you shift the emotion, you shift the experience. That's the alchemy of attention. Now, a warning. Old patterns will fight back. Your brain will crave the old lens, because it's safe. predictable, easy, but you didn't come here for easy. You came here for truth, and truth doesn't shout, whispers. It hides in small moments, in a breath, in a pause, in a second chance you almost ignored. Truth reveals itself when you decide to look again. So next time you feel stuck, ask, what am I refusing to observe? Because maybe that is where the freedom is. It's not in doing more, not in being perfect, but in noticing what you never gave yourself permission to see, like your own strength, your quiet resilience, your ability to love again, your power to begin again, even after everything. Observation is not just about vision, it's about willingness. To see beauty where you once saw brokenness, to see grace where you once saw guilt, to see yourself not as a product of pain, but as a portal to possibility. And that shift, that quiet, invisible shift, that's how you collapse a new version of reality, not with force, with focus. So take this seriously every time you choose. To notice something good, you're not being naive. You're being strategic. You're building new grooves in your mind, new memories, new identities. And with time, they become your new normal. So the world doesn't have to change. You do. Your attention does, because attention is creation. So here we are. You've seen how your attention isn't passive. It's not just watching, it's weaving. It's every glance, every thought, every judgment, shaping what you experience as real. You've learned how fear distorts, how past wounds color the present, how identity is often just a habit of perception. But what if the most important thing isn't what you've been seeing, it's what you've been avoiding? The unspoken dreams, the hidden grief, the questions you never dared to ask, the parts of yourself you keep in the dark. It's because just as observation shapes reality, ignorance shapes it too. Whatever you refuse to look at doesn't disappear. It just gains power in the shadows. So here's the final question I'll leave you with. What part of your life is stuck? Not because of what you observe, but because of what you refuse to observe. It's that fear you never name, that truth you keep delaying. It's that door you never check, assuming it's locked. Maybe that's the place where your entire life begins to shift. Maybe that's the next quantum collapse waiting to happen. And maybe, just maybe, the next video that's about to show up here on your screen holds exactly the next piece you need. Not because the algorithm is magic, because you are. When you start paying attention with intention, so don't stop here. Keep watching, keep questioning, keep looking deeper. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.